question.
Okay.
Is trying to think of how to frame it. But there's two schools of thought, let's say, right?
Uh-huh.
And one school of thought is, we can't do anything, Mashiach's going to come, God's going to send him, and that's it. We're waiting.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
The other side of the coin is, we have to do work, we have to make it happen.
Right. Who's right?
Who's right? How do we, who's wrong? Are they both right?
Okay.
You know, how do we unpack that?
Okay, very good. This is such a softball question because it's very perfect to answer. Okay, let's take the question for the record here. So the question is like this. The Shoyal wants to know, there's different voices, different things you hear among the Jewish nation when people talk about Mashiach. Some people talk about Mashiach is going to come. Something's going to happen. Right? And then
by Hashem is going to come out of the sky.
By Shishi will come from the sky, Rashi says. And then you have other people who talk about activism. Bringing Mashiach. Something like that. So which one is it?
Which one is it?
They're both true. So here's the thing. I personally, let's talk this over. Let's see if you can get anywhere with this. I mean, personally, I don't even see a shayla here because to me it's pashut that the idea of Mashiach is something that humans are going to enact, enable, more than enable, enact, put into practice. I think that you have to understand. Here's how I see it. I mean, let's say talk about Mashiach himself, okay? So there's this person who can live up to all the predictions of the Nevi'im for this amazing person. Leaving aside the question of the Mashiach miraculously descending from heaven, okay? Let's talk about the person. That person will be what he can be, he'll achieve what he can become through natural means, the same way everyone becomes what they can become, through his choosing the good.
Like the Rambam's Mahal.
Through
like
Bechira.
Nevuah means you work, you become, the Spitzmensch.
Yeah, okay, no, I see you're raising a good point. I mean, if we look at Nevuah as being a miracle, then maybe the whole Mashiach thing is a miracle. I hear. But, interesting, okay. Yeah, see, but the problem is then you're making the whole Torah into a miracle.
No, I mean, no problem with Rambam.
Right, okay, let's speak for the Rambam first. Okay, let's speak for the Rambam and then let's maybe go then and see, is there any debate about this? Which maybe I'm not qualified to answer. I don't know if I know enough to answer that. But speaking for the Rambam, that we're in, prophecy is natural. And we all, at least theoretically, are trying to become prophets. And we should get back to this question, which is why we're not prophets these days. According to the Rambam, is that a natural thing, or is that a din? Is that a decree from heaven? And what's going to make that change? It's an important question. That's an important factor here. But the fact that prophecy in and of itself is natural, according to the Rambam, and the fact that therefore follows that we're supposed to be working to attain it, Mashiach will be a great prophet. Okay, but that's all a natural process. What the Mashiach will then affect, which according to the Rambam is like this. So what's Mashiach going to do? He's going to gather the Jews back to the land of Israel. He'll bring people back to the Torah, bring the Jews back to the Torah, and he will build the Beis HaMikdash. And all three of those actions, the Rambam makes the Mashiach as the one who's doing it. So he doesn't say the Mashiach that the temple will descend from heaven. He says the Mashiach will build it. So all those things happen through natural means. And given that all those things happen through natural means, I see no reason why we are supposed to attempt it. And let me be clear about that. What I mean to say is that even the whole idea of, okay, well, there's a person, there's a figure who's going to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but you know what? How do figures do things? In other words, great man Mashiach, right? So he's going to bring the Jews back to Israel. How's he going to bring the Jews back to Israel? Well, because the Jews are going to be willing to come back to Israel, right? And will the fact that they've been going back to Israel for the last 100 years and even before that, will the fact that Yehudah HaLevi wrote a Sefer Kosi, will that help the Mashiach in his mission of completing the return to Eretz Yisrael? Of course it will. The Mashiach is going to bring people back to Hashem and to the Torah. Will the queue of movements have some credit? Of course. And this is a big title, by the way. See, some people say that like the Zionist enterprise is in conflict with their belief in Mashiach, because since the Rambam says that Mashiach is going to bring the Jews back to Israel, how can we do it? We're not Mashiach with it, but that's not a fair, it's not a good argument, because by that argument you would say since Mashiach is going to bring the Jews back to the Torah, anyone that's involved in Kirov is undermining the Mashiach. But it's not true. He's not undermining Mashiach. He's paving the way for Mashiach, because Mashiach is the culmination. Mashiach is the person, I should say, okay, who's going to complete the process. Ad kedei kach that it's actually very interesting. The Rambam, why is Rambam focused so much on the person Mashiach? It's very strange.
I mean, through that lens, though, we should all just go back to Israel.
Of course we should, right? We should all go back to Eretz, the same way we should all bring people back to the Torah.
Right.
And we should all attempt in building Beis HaMikdash. That's our mitzvah, right? For sure. And by the way, I don't think there's a mitzvah to build Beis HaMikdash today, because I don't think the Shechina will dwell in the Beis. I don't think there's a mitzvah to build the Beis HaMikdash without the Shechina, without an expectation that the Shechina will come dwell therein, because the pasuk says they should build me a mikdash. So I happen to think there's no mitzvah to build the Beis HaMikdash unless you could argue why the Shechina will be shayra. The Shechina didn't even come to the second Beis HaMikdash. Okay, so we have to figure out why is the Shechina not shayra. What will make the Shechina be shayra? We have to get very serious about these questions, or else we have no way of passing these basic questions.
The first step is to get out of Dodge.
Well, maybe not. Look, I mean, I don't know, because like there's a big problem over here. I asked this question today. I don't know if you saw. The question's like this: given that Malka v'Sareb Goyim Ein Torah, why do we study Torah today? Okay, that was my question. Let me give you some background. The pasuk says that when, the pasuk in Eicha, it's kings and princes. Her kings and her princes are among the nations. There's no teaching. Gam nevi'eha le'matzu chazayin me'ez Hashem. The prophets also haven't found visions from Hashem. So this pasuk, the Gemara Megillah famously says, I think it's Megillah, that Torah. If someone tells you Torah b'Goyim, don't believe him. There's no Torah among the nations. Okay. Less famously, the Sifri says that the same pasuk teaches us that when we, Bnei Yisrael, are in Golos, are not in Eretz Yisrael, we don't have Torah. We don't have Torah. Had Torah b'Eretz Yisrael. Had Torah b'Eretz Yisrael. What are we doing? So what are we doing? Right, why are we sitting here learning if we don't have Torah? So first let's understand, what does it mean we don't have Torah? I'll tell you what that means, I think. What that means is like this. It's a very weird thing that we have. It's another way of stating the same question. What are we doing? What are we studying? What is this about? Okay, let's say I'll ask you, what is a Torah? What is the function of Torah? What is the Torah there to teach you? What would you say?
In a philosophical sense.
Basically.
In a philosophical
Okay.
high-level answer.
Yeah.
It's how we could worship Hashem Echad.
Perfect. How can we worship Hashem? Perfect. Fine. How can we worship Hashem? That's good. You said Hashem Echad. That's good. That's a good answer, which I think you said because of the Shurim. But how can we worship Hashem? Right? Okay. The problem is, you said a little bit of an answer for this, by the way, when you brought in Echad. But the problem is saying, okay, Torah teaches you how to worship Hashem. The problem is like this. That's a nonsensical thing, I think. Why? Because before the specifics of how to worship Hashem, you have to first have an idea of what does it mean to worship Hashem.
So I mean, if I have to take it a step further, what I would say is that Torah helps you be the complete person.
Okay, fine.
Which you then could
Right.
connect yourself, attach yourself
Right.
to the Yechidus, to the oneness
Good.
of Hashem.
It's good. So good. So what you said, let me just repeat this for the record. You said that the Torah is a means to get you to some place, and that place will be called serving Hashem or something like that. Okay. So now, I think it starts the other way. meaning that you have to have a concept of what it means to serve Hashem, and then the Torah will support that. You suggested something which is equally plausible, which is that the Torah leads you to a place, and when you're in that mental state, you'll be serving Hashem. Okay? So in other words, but the important point is that what we established is that if a person studies, let's say, the mitzvah of Put on Tefillin, or studies the mitzvah of Dal L'Treimim or Lulav or Sukkah, if that doesn't bring him someplace, either the way I'm saying it, if it's not starting from some point of perspective, or the way you're suggesting it, if it doesn't bring him to a certain place, then that's not what the Torah is. So that's why when we say there's no Torah b'goyim, that's what it means. It doesn't mean there's no details. Of course there are details. We can know the sukkah b'goyim. We can know even deeper things. We can know how Nevuah works. We can know lots of things. But the point, Torah is not a bunch of knowledge. Torah is something that's supposed to either support or get you, at least get you to a place called Avodas Hashem, perhaps called Das Hashem, I think is maybe a preferred way to say it. Maybe as you said, Hashem is supposed to bring you to Yichud, it's supposed to bring you to all your actions being Me'uchad, right, as we discussed. But it doesn't do that without Eretz Yisrael. It doesn't do that without Eretz Yisrael. Why doesn't it do that without Eretz Yisrael? In my version, it's because when we're not in Eretz Yisrael, we don't have the concept of Das Hashem, or Avodas Hashem. In your version, it's because that's a very key component to tie everything together and to give us some sort of mental state, right? No, so the Torah is trying to bring us to a mental state, and a very important part of that mental state is that we're self-determination, autonomy, nationalism.
So, and through that lens, Israel that exists today is not Eretz Yisrael of where you would have a Torah.
Because, okay, so you said, I want to repeat so it's on the record. You said that Israel today is not that Torah. Why not?
Because it's a secular country that has
right.
pride parades. And,
for sure, right, 100%, right, no, 100%. Israel today, right.
The Zionists think that they brought Mashiach by establishing Israel.
Right, no, so that's certainly not true. Correct. Yeah, right. No, that's obviously not what the Torah believes. In other words, but what the state of Israel does is that it gives us the means to put the Torah into effect. Or make the Torah, or I shouldn't say maybe, but the Torah into effect is very weird. First of all, you have to watch out. See, you're moving to Eretz Yisrael, you have to watch out from the people that, these people want halachic state. In other words, they think that the whole purpose of Israel is that we should
religious
impose halacha. Yeah, see, that's very lame because they're sort of making the same mistake of Torah b'goyim, that there's no Torah b'goyim. They're not realizing that there's some bigger picture here.
Right. So
that's what I like it my way. In other words, you think the Torah is going to bring you to a certain place. I don't like that. I'll tell you why I don't like that. You know why I don't like that? That's a very important point, the debate we just had before. Is the Torah starting from a certain concept or is it getting there? Okay? Now, I'll get to why I don't like it in a minute. First, I want to tell you, what does it mean if Torah starts in that place? It means you have to first have a certain picture of, it means the idea of the Torah precedes the Torah, right? Mm-hmm. So then, if that's the case, and this is the most important question that everyone should be talking about, in my opinion, is that, well, what is the most basic idea of the Torah? And I'm calling that Das Hashem. Okay, call Hashem. I think it's Das Hashem. This is the technical term. What is the content of Das Hashem? What does it look like? And then we can figure out how does the Torah support that. Okay. So therefore, one second. What's the most important question that should be burning on everyone's mind today is what is this Das Hashem that the Nevi'im talk about? Next question is how does the Torah support that? And then another important question is where do the other nations fit into that? Where does the world fit into that? Molad's Das Hashem, what's that supposed to look like? But in order to talk about that, you first have to know what Das Hashem is, and then you could. That's to me that's the most basic question. What is Das Hashem? How is it achieved in a general sense, and then how does the Torah support that in a specific sense? And then you can talk about internationally. What is the vision of the prophets? Why would Das Hashem protect the world from all evils? No one can answer that question because no one even knows what Das Hashem is really. No one thinks about it enough, but everyone should be thinking about it. And therefore, we're talking about, let's say, a religious Zionist ideal that, like, all we want is that they should keep halacha in Eretz Yisrael. Why? Stop, because you have this belief that halacha is a good thing. Okay, I don't know. I don't think it makes sense. I think you first. I mean, it's obviously taking the Torah at face value. Yes, it's better to keep halacha than not. Okay, I can accept that. But that's not like the end. In order to get to the purpose of Eretz Yisrael reaching its purpose, you have to first have an idea what is Das Hashem, and then you could figure out why halacha maybe is important. Probably is important. I'm not debating that, but that's not the point. Now, the way you said it, well, maybe Torah brings to that. Okay? The reason why I don't like that is because I don't know. I just think that the Torah has to be coming to support an idea. Someone had the idea, right? Moshe Rabbeinu? I don't know. So to assume that like we don't have to have the idea, and now the Torah is just this magical way to get there, I just think that's probably not reasonable. I think we have to probably first have the idea.
I think
Like most things we do, I'm saying, like most things we do. If a person wants to make money, you tell them, okay, you don't have to know what you want. You just have to know that you should do this. You should look at the stock market. Like, what do you mean? Unless you know where you're going,
right.
Probably not going to get there. So
having a goal is
right,
is definitely
right. I don't know. Right. I think the law maybe does a lot. Obviously, does a lot of good for society.
Yeah, at the simplest level, it's about, again, not to oversimplify, but it's about doing things with intention.
Right.
Right. All of it. Why do I make a bracha before I drink? Right. Why do I?
Exactly. So everything has done with intention. Right.
Everything done with intention. I'm not just an animal. Like the point is, we're separating man from animal.
Fine. So that's the thing. So you're doing something with intention. But in order to have the greatest attainments, you have to have the greatest intentions, and you have to make sense out of that.
Right. And the Torah helps you do that.
Torah helps you do that, but I'm going to repeat myself that Torah helps you do that, but you first have to know where you're going.
Right. First, you know that you have to do things with intention.
Yeah, and you have to know what you want with it. No, you also have to know what. No, you need more than just knowing that you have intention. You also have to know where it's going. Yeah. No, that's a good level. That's a good level. That's a good level. And doing things with intention and doing mitzvahs with kavanah and basic kavanas is amazing, and will get humans very far.
I think there's more to that also though, because when the second you start saying like, I think one of the key disagreements or the key issue that you have between the forces of light, the forces of darkness, the progressive liberals, communists, whatever, and is they look around and they say, oh, man is not special. Mm-hmm. Humanity is not special. Okay. There's another animal in the forest. Uh-huh. And so, the same way animals like to eat and kill and do. So if I get upset, I kill them. But there's no special relationship. There's no brotherhood of man. There's no brotherhood of man. Okay. We're not all one. We don't all have to support each other. Okay. And then the other side of that coin, the side that we fall on is, we're all connected. Mm-hmm. Right? And so we're not just all what's it called? We're not just all running around and doing whatever we want and nothing matters and there's no past, present, future, right? Only the moment counts, and I don't have to have intention. No, because again, I'm part of the bigger picture, right? I'm connected to everyone else. Right. And I think if we saw the world that way, that's the oneness. Right. On a simple level. Sure.
Yeah, no, that's a deep level. No, it's not simple at all. Okay, so what you said was like this, and what you said was that there's a fundamental debate whether man is just another animal, or man is onto something greater.
They're just a species that just happens
right.
to,
and you connected it, yeah.
Species
no,
man, and
right.
It happens to be smarter.
Right. It happens to be man is a cool animal. And you connected this to something about men doing things in unison. Humanity uniting, right? Which I think is very important. In other words, it's a very key point. So we believe humanity is special, right? Humanity is special, but there's a big kash on it. And there's a kash on that, much more fundamental. I think you're right. Humanity is only special if it's true that humanity could get along. I'll tell you why. It's very simple. I think it's an interesting argument. It goes like this. What's the most basic thing about humanity according to Torah? That he's an image of God, right? And what follows for the fact that man is an image of God? You know what follows? Not allowed to kill him. Right? That's the most question life. Can't kill a human being because in the image of God. So now I have a kasha. Are human beings kill each other? So in other words, if being an image of God, if from that it follows that human beings should not kill each other.
God is echad, is a is oneness, so then I shouldn't kill you because I'm killing myself.
Right, that's true. We're all connected. That's true. That's an interesting way to look at it.
We're all one.
There's probably a lot to look at, probably a lot to think about that as well. But so have a kasha on Torah. How could the Torah say man is the image of God? And Torah also says that man being in the image of God is a reason for human beings not to kill man. Are human beings kill each other? So what? No, they didn't get the memo. The man is the image of God. It's not a piece of information that has no bearing on reality. I'm asking the Metzias, the reality disproves the Torah, right? So the answer, I think, is what you're getting at, which is that are the differences between humans bridgeable or not? This is a key question for Mashiach, right? And this is a key question that relates to the unity of God, as we discussed 2 weeks ago. Is there anything that could unite human beings? Or are there differences? Are their differences fundamentally unbridgeable? Now, if their differences are fundamentally unbridgeable, then human beings are like basically a bunch of different species. And the Rambam says this in the Moreh Nevuchim. He says the differences between different types of humans are such that they're like different species. Yeah? Because he says some people will can't even hurt a fly, can't even hurt a mouse, I think is his example. And other people will kill their kids out of anger. So basically there are some humans that act rabbit-like, and some humans act lion-like. So the lion kills the rabbit, and that's fine. The lion kills the zebra, no one has a problem with that. So why do we have a problem that the lunatics, blood-crazed lunatics, kill peaceniks? Yeah, different species. Right? Why does it offend us even? Why does it offend us? So you have to look at the Rambam. It's very interesting. But the point I'm getting at is that, well, actually, we believe that humanity can transcend their differences. Now, if they can transcend their differences, the only way that could happen is because they transcend themselves. This has to do with the conversation of unity of Hashem. In other words, that there's one idea that is superior to any experiential, material, or physical, subjective kind of a being. Right? You know what I'm referring to? Like we spoke about last 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So then that means man is in the image of God, because basically it means that man can transcend whatever particular characteristics he has due to his genetics or his nature. So then man is in the image of God. He's one, like God is one, and then you can't kill him. Okay, what does that do with anything? Because what are we going to do? Oh, right. So it's a very important idea, and this is a very important idea to think about. We have to get back to your first question, by the way. I want to talk about that more. It relates to this point also. That, like, you have a pasuk that says man is in the image of God, right? And typically we think of that, and this is a very bad way to think about things. Typically people think about the Torah as revealing truths that, let's say we take them on faith, and okay, maybe sometimes we can understand, we can see why you might look at man as being special, but we also hear the counter argument, right? And I think it's a much more powerful way to look at the Torah, as the Torah is putting forth a model, a possibility, that to the extent that people don't know this, it's because it hasn't yet been realized. So I think we see how we went through that ourselves, because I asked, like, it's a kasha on the Torah. How could the Torah say man's in the image of God, don't kill my people, kill human beings? The Torah says, let's look at the Torah as giving us a vision of what can be, okay? The truth or falsehood of which hangs on whether it's going to be actualized. Right. That's why I'm a big messianist, because I think that actually the Torah is about Geula. The Torah is a vision of Geula. Which, by the way, I share with the Mekubalim, like, Avodah Kodesh, it's an amazing thing. Avodah Kodesh says, man is supposed to live forever. And really, if you live up to the Torah, you'll live forever. And when the pasuk says, do the mitzvahs and you'll live, he says that means in this world. Okay? Chazal say that when the pasuk says you'll live, it means in the next world. Doesn't mean in this world. So he says, yeah, because they saw in the world as we know it, people don't live forever. So they had to give an explanation for the pasuk. But really, it's not what it means. In other words, what the Avodah is saying, this has to do with the first question. We'll get back to the first question you asked about Mashiach being natural or not. What he's saying is an amazing thing. He's saying is that Chazal cannot really tell us what the Torah really means. Because what the Torah really means is so foreign from our lived experience that we also had to talk about how the Torah means something even for us today when people aren't living forever. Okay? But what he's teaching us is something very, very important. You have to read the Torah as this radical document that promises some extreme version of reality that we are not holding by yet. But we have to do everything we can to get. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm so busy with Gula, because I think that you're not learning Torah if you're not doing Gula. Okay. And back to that question that I was saying before. I had a question: why are we studying Torah if we're among the nations? I think the answer is we're simply trying to get back. I think this is the real truth. That when we study Torah, we're not. In truth, we don't have Torah b'goyim. We don't have Torah without Eretz Yisrael. We don't have the Torah. But so what are we doing? We're trying to get to Torah. We're trying to rediscover the Torah, recover the Torah, create the Torah in certain ways. So that's what we're doing.
Generally, you said get back. I think it was from Shalom Shafter when I was in Fallsburg. I said 20 years ago. It's crazy when you think about it. 20 years. The kids, I think it's another part that Hashem Lechem and Teshuva is all we're saying is get us back to where we started from.
Right.
Like we're so, like turn the train around, get us back to the starting.
And that's a good thing.
The starting line, and we'll go from here.
Okay,
we just want to get back to the starting line. We just want to turn the train around, which is going in the wrong direction. And that's why we say that Hashem, Hashem should return us,
Right. We have to achieve something, but I hear it. But you should know, I think it was, I don't know if it's Franz Rosen's right, but he's a very interesting part that where it says Ashivenu Hashem Elach V'Rashu Chadashim V'Kekedem, it's an Eicha. That's how Eicha ends. He says it's part of Lamentations. Because after all the suffering and everything, to go back to the way it was, that's not the point. The point is we have to go somewhere new. Right. Okay, it's all different schmooze. That's I'm writing about a lot. See, okay, so now back to the thing about Mashiach being miraculous. See, this is a very important point. This is a very important point. You have to understand. See, in order to understand the Torah, you have to think about historical issues as well. It's not we tend to think about the Torah in absolutes, but there's also historical things. Let me explain what I mean. I just mentioned that the Avodas HaKodesh says that when Chazal say that you do Avodas HaKodesh Meir Begabai, he was from the expulsion in Spain. Okay, he was 13 years old before the night, I think, and he wrote the Sefer Avodas HaKodesh, which is from the fundamental form of Kabbalah. So he says that of course the purpose of the Torah is to live forever, and actually we're going to live forever. Okay, how we're going to live forever? He has his own way of living forever, whatever it is. Okay, now we know that. Why not? That in principle, maybe we could live forever. Okay, which is not in conflict with what he says, but he makes it more mystical. Okay. So he says, so why did Chazal not talk about that? Because it was why did Chazal say that when the Pasuk says you'll live, they mean in exile? Because the fact is that living in a world where there's death all around, people do die. If they're going to go tell people the Torah means live forever, then no one's going to learn Torah. So what he's saying is that we have this, so he's saying a historical fact. He's saying that when you view even something that it says in Gemara, you have to view it from a historical lens. You have to view it in a historical context. And doesn't mean this is the final word of what the Torah is all about, which is an amazing thing to say. And thankfully, a great person such as he said it, because most people, if you would tell them this, they would say it's kfira, at least, whatever. What? Yeah, how can you say such thing? Basically, it's an amazing expression he has. He got his expression. Basically, he's like, you have to know. Chazal says something, he's like, oh, you have to know. God, they only said it because whatever. But what he's saying is, he's saying a deep thing. He's saying that there is a need when we're learning quote unquote Torah, because see, we don't have Torah, but we're pretending to have Torah because what do you do a whole day? To walk around telling people we don't have Torah? This is a very terrible thing to tell people. The only reason I'm telling this, the only reason I'm here telling everyone we don't have Torah, is because I think we could actually recover it today. What?
Yeah, we have to go get it.
We have to go get it. We can go back to Eretz Yisrael. We can start talking about Das Hashem, something which very, very is not really talked about. Look at all this farm. No one really talks about what is Das Hashem. I mean, the Nevi'im are busy with Das Hashem, and Yirmiyah says nothing to be proud of except for Das Hashem. And yet, nothing in the world. No one should be proud of anything except for Das Hashem. Yet, I don't know. I can't think of any sefer that says, okay, what's Das Hashem? What is this that the Nevi'im are talking about? Not the Kuzi, not the Ramban, not the Ibn Ezra. I mean, the Ibn Ezra uses it now and then, I think, uses the expression. But just like, what is Das Hashem, and how do you get there? And I think the reason why this couldn't be, and I have no question that the Nevi'im were talking about this. If this is the only thing you should be busy with, and the Nevi'im hold up as the highest and most. So of course, they were talking to the Talmidim of, do you have Das Hashem? Do you know Das Hashem? How do you get to Das Hashem? What is Das Hashem? How is Das Hashem brought to the nations? How is the Das Hashem of the nations different than the Das Hashem Yisrael? Who's going to teach them? How? And why does the Torah support it? That was the only thing they cared about. I don't think they cared about anything else. The reason why we didn't talk about it for 2,000 years is because you cannot spend your time talking about something inaccessible. See? And that's what the Ramban was a huge secret. The Ramban famously says that doing mitzvahs outside of Eretz Yisrael is just practice. You know this Ramban? Just practice. Why do we do tefillin and mitzvahs outside Eretz Yisrael? Because we have to keep in practice. And no one really knows this. Someone, like a year ago, someone called me up. He discovered this Ramban, and he's like, how could it be? You can't really mean it. I said, literally, the Gemara says if you live in Chutzah, it's like you're doing a different religion. It says you're like living in a desert. No, the Gemara doesn't mean that either. Basically, my point is that this is not something we go around teaching people. We can't walk around bar mitzvah bar mitzvah speech, tell them now you're ready to what? Practice. No, we tell them now you're serving Hashem. Till now Hashem didn't really care, and now Hashem really cares. Now everything you do matters. Really, no, nothing you do matters. But by the way, it's very important. Everything matters because practice is very important. But it's not a very inspiring message, right? You have to tell people that you made it. Once a year comes Tisha B'Av, and everyone's like, why are we crying? They said, English, okay, but I thought every other day you told me how important the Torah and Tefillah is. And today you tell me, no, I want Nevuah. What do I really want Nevuah? I want Kabbanas. The truth is we have nothing. We mamash have nothing. Nothing. This is not what it's about. This whole Torah experiment is not about this. Meaning this, when I say this, I mean the last 2,000 years. But we still have this perverse belief, and whatever, it looks perverse, I actually believe it, but I'm saying it's a stubborn belief that we're going to bring it back. Oh, so thank you very much, everyone, for the last 2,000 years for staying in shape. Now, part of staying in shape means don't keep on talking about the fact that we don't have it. We can't. If everyone would be like the Kuzri and talk about how we have to be in Eretz Yisrael, and without being in Eretz Yisrael we're nothing, and without Nevuah we're nothing, then people will get disheartened. Okay? Yehudah HaLevi was a poet, so he could have this inspiration and this poetic kind of relationship with reality, where his love of Hashem and his sense of Torah was what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever, it was infused, it was comprised of his longing and poetry and desire, but you have to have a certain kind of mind for that, a certain kind of bent. Most people need to say, I'm fixing the Lamis now, or I'm fixing this world now, or like Hashem wants me to do this, and you get a Gan Eden for doing it, or something like that. That has to be their Judaism, right? The Judaism can't be, I dreamt that I was in the Beis HaMikdash. Yehudah HaLevi's Judaism was, he writes a poem. I fell asleep, and I dreamt that I was in the Beis HaMikdash. Beautiful poems, some of the most beautiful poems. He fell asleep, and he dreamt that he was in the Beis HaMikdash, and he heard the Levim singing, and the smoke, and this and that. It's beautiful. And this was his identity. In other words, he was acutely aware of the fact that we don't have something, and that was his relationship with Hashem was, I yearn to have it. And Taka, he went to, a legend, he went to Etzel, did he not go? Whatever, it's a question, but the legend is that he was killed there, and that's fine. For Yehudah HaLevi, that's his Judaism, perfect. He lived his life. He became a legend. Right? Taka became a legend, because he's a poet. But other people can't do that. Other people have to think that we're doing something today. Right? You see what I'm saying? They can't live in the past. Most people can't live in the past and the future. So that's why Chazal didn't present a Torah that's completely divorced from reality, as Eretz Yisrael says. You got to make it work. But here's the thing: there's a major tension that, on the one hand, we have to teach the youth that the Torah has meaning for today. On the other hand, we also have to teach them that it's meaningless, and the real meaning is yet to be discovered.
To bring this future.
Right. So this is a big tension. It's a big tension, and Avodas HaKodesh gives us license, if you need it, to point out and say this vart, this is a gullus vart, or this is said because of exigencies of gullus necessary, but really there's something more here, And you could say that, and that means you could say it to a Rashi, you could say it to a Ramban, you could say it to everyone, and you have to learn the Torah on many levels. Okay, of course you can't. I mean, I don't know. Should we become messianic freaks? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Whatever. I think it's about time. I don't think it's such a big deal anymore. It's not doing so much better without that. Might as well. No.
I hear. I mean, I think that just anecdotally, and this is a personal, feeling. Maybe I don't know, but I personally, when I'm in Eretz Yisrael, you feel it.
Yeah.
You hear.
Yeah, it's all different, of course.
It's just there.
Of course.
Yeah,
it's different reality.
It's a different reality.
It's different reality. Everyone feels it. Yeah.
You feel it.
Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that's interesting is taking a step back to our initial question. I'm thinking that I don't know of another example where we're just supposed to wait and wish. And
Right.
hope.
No.
Like everything is about doing, right?
Right.
Everything's about bechira, making
Right.
choices and acting. Again,
Right.
if I make a choice that I'm going to fly and I don't jump
Right.
off a building, what does that mean? I didn't make a choice.
Right.
I wasn't biker.
Right.
So my whole point is the choices I make, right? That's
Right.
bechira, right? That's our existence is to make the choices. Outcomes don't matter,
Right.
yes, but I have to make the choices. Great. So I should choose to not do anything to bring, the future.
Correct. So right. I want to get back to that point. Right. So you're just saying. So the comment was that nothing in the Torah is just granted to us. Everything is through our choosing, making the right choices. Yeah. No. 100%. 100%. There is right. There doesn't.
To be clear, but choice doesn't mean a decision. A choice means an action.
Yeah. Right. Choice means an action, a way of life, a way of living, doing things. Doing real things in this real world. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? There's nothing in the Torah that happens just by itself. So why should this be any different? I see no reason why. But this is getting to my point that I want to get back to, which is that I think that part of the reason that this concept of Mashiach as this thing that's going to happen to us, as opposed to something that we're going to do, part of the reason why that developed is because of this thing we were just talking about,
right?
Which is that how do you retain a concept? How do you retain a teaching of something that is completely foreign and impossible? See the problem? How do you teach the
I take
kid?
a step further, right? In 1492, whatever,
Right.
Spanish Inquisition,
Right.
the probably were saying Mashiach is coming. It's got to be.
Right.
Like, this is
Right.
crazy.
Exactly. So
sure, you go through.
So here's the thing, right?
We think we're special because 75 years ago, my grandfather, when he
Right.
when he got out of Poland and got to Russia and then ended up in Argentina and then ended up in New York, he had to believe that this is crazy.
Right, exactly.
His whole world was upended.
Right. So in other words, basically, take let's say maybe a better example is I don't know, Eastern Europe in the Chmelnytsky massacres, whatever, right? So what's your concept of Mashiach at that time? Remember, we just learned a very important idea that every concept of the Torah is historically conditioned. That's the basic Kodesh teacher. Very important idea. Every concept of Torah is historically conditioned, and it's very important to understand. I want to finish this point about Mashiach, but I want you to explain make it clear what that means. That doesn't mean that when Chazal say that you're going to live in the next world as opposed to saying this world, they were lying, and they had to make something up. I don't think that's what it means. I don't think Avodas Kodesh means that. What Avodas Kodesh means is that the Torah is eternal, and part of what the Torah being eternal means is that the meaning of the Torah can be understood in different ways in different times. Okay, there may be a truer and a fuller meaning and a deeper meaning, and that's only going to be realized when things all work out. But even when you don't have access to that further meaning, because it's meaningless to talk about living forever in a world where it's no such, it becomes like it's an absurdity. So then there's a lower level meaning, which is also true. Okay, so he's not saying it's not true. Similarly, well, let's talk about this concept called Mashiach, right? So the concept called Mashiach in today's world, we can understand the Rambam, everything, the idea that Mashiach being natural, the idea of maybe of a certain a tremendous wealth, let's say, described in the days of Mashiach, the idea of world peace, the idea of those things being natural now is something we can understand. Even perhaps resurrection of the dead becoming a natural thing. We could at least dream. We could at least imagine that it's a possibility, a natural possibility. So then we think of it in that way. In all the generations where it was so far removed from nature. So I'm just going to do my example, right? Using my example of Eastern Europe. So then you develop this miraculous concept. Okay, is it false? I don't know. Because, not really, because...
It's not reality, someplace.
Right, it's not reality, so therefore it's miraculous.
It was their reality.
What?
It was their reality. You can't say someone's reality.
Okay, no, you're saying their experience. So I'm saying something else. I'm saying even the fact that they considered it to be miraculous was true. Why?
Right.
Because from their perspective, it's miraculous.
Yeah.
If they would believe that there's going to be a miracle.
You remember the smoke when we had the forest fires, whatever, place, 2 years ago in New York? Everything was orange, right? Freaking out. 100 years ago,
Right.
200 years ago, 300,
Right.
not that long.
It's a miracle.
It's crazy. The
Sign
whole
of
world's
heaven.
done it.
Exactly.
Everyone go on to daven, go put on your towels and fill it,
Right.
and go
Right. Exactly.
fast, and
Exactly.
the world's coming to an end.
Right. Exactly. And that's a reality. That is the meaning of that event. Then. Right.
Yeah, we understand. Like,
Exactly.
you see,
Right.
so
That's the
it's
meaning
fine.
then.
So,
Right. But I'm saying even more than that. Let's say you tell someone from 300 years ago that that there's going to be someone on the moon who could talk in live, well, not in a lifetime, whatever, but that I could talk instantaneously to someone across the globe. Okay, we can FaceTime, whatever, Zoom. So is that miraculous? Yeah, from his perspective, it's miraculous. Now he caught up. It's absolutely not miraculous. Fine. But the point is that if they would have known, 300 years ago, that people are going to talk to each other across the globe, they would call it miracles are going to happen. And they would get a little smarter. We realize as it gets close to it, it happens through nature. Okay, no. So in other words, I'm thinking of things like this. A lot of midrashim that and more so that you find, let's say, that lend themselves to a miraculous kind of messianic redemption, is because I don't think there's any other way to talk about it,
right,
other than just completely something that's going to happen without us having any input. Right? The same way, again, to use the example, if they would have talked about the day will come when people will talk to across the globe, so what are they going to say? What do they say? Because they're going to discover electrons. What is an electron? Cable beneath this. What's a cable? What are you talking about? They don't even have the language. They don't even have the concepts for it.
Right.
So therefore, it's a miracle. Right? Something's going to happen. Because from their perspective, it's the equivalent of something happening. One step after the other, little by little, it's not something happening. It's actually
in
something.
1850, if you would have told a Jew that Eretz Yisrael is going to exist and we're going to have a military,
Right, it's the biggest
planes,
miracle, of
tanks,
course. Right.
What are you talking about?
Right.
Like,
Right. Exactly. So that's getting back to the point. I think it's important. I think as we get closer, and here's the thing. Here's a very important thing. Ultimately, what's going to decide this question, your original question of whether it's natural or miracle? If someone could explain it naturally and do it, then b'vakasha, go ahead. So this is what I'm busy thinking about. I think, and this is what I think everyone should think about it. I think there's something. And again, I think right now everyone should think about Das Hashem and think about how the Torah does it, how exile does it, and how we can teach to the nations, and how we should do it. I think this is the attack of the subject, and I think there is what to do about this. I do it myself. I need a lot of support to do it right, but I think it's doable. I think we should start talking. Should have these conversations.
The core question, or the question behind the question really is, again, the idea that we're passively sitting here,
Yeah.
and then we're just gonna one day magic.
Yeah.
And
So nothing happens that way. Right. Yeah.
Or no, we have to actually do work. Whatever it means.
No. So right.
Learn, daven, whatever it is,
Correct.
whatever you want to do
Right.
to bring it.
Right.
But this idea, the Torah character. I think,
Right.
I don't want to talk about that, but you could go to a
Okay.
little less extreme, right? You go maybe a little not that extreme, but the idea that again that we shouldn't be busy with Eretz Yisrael, we shouldn't do anything. Mashiach is going to come when it comes, and that's it. And it's going to. Like that to me doesn't happen.
Yeah. Okay, right. So you're asking, is there any? Okay, it's important. There is one important point here. Is there any validity to this idea of like we're not supposed to do anything, right? That's your question. To do nothing, let's say, right? Do nothing because like it has to happen by itself.
Right.
Okay. Let me tell you what. So there is a big mistake that everyone makes, which is that, and explains a lot of it. I think there's something called, and this is a terrible thing to do. It's called the chikas haketz. You're not allowed to hasten the end. What does that mean, not allowed to hasten the end? So, one example given in Rashi, one explanation actually, is that they're not allowed to. You're not allowed to pray too much for the redemption. Okay, why can't you pray too much for the redemption? Right? That's the problem. Says the Arvei Nachal. Arvei Nachal is from David Eibschitz, Srod, Seret. It's an amazing sefer on Chumash, and he says that you have to be careful what you wish for. Basically, okay, you daven for something, and if it's not the time for it, that means if the world is not ready for it, so it might happen. But when something happens that the world is not ready for, then things are going to break. While if something happens when the world is naturally up to that stage in its development, then it could happen without breaking things. Okay. So let me explain what this means in a very, very fundamental, basic way. The Jewish redemption is a very fraught process. It's fraught in the sense that I think we must have spoken about this once. you have to manage the relation to Jewish and non-Jewish relations. How do they deal with this, right? On record, and we must say very clearly, we do not want supremacy. We think we have an idea that the whole world can benefit from, okay? But until we know what that idea is by ourselves, maybe we just want to be superior. Nobody knows what this idea is. You get to my main point. Till people know exactly what the Torah wants, right? Some people could articulate what Das Hashem is. So then they're grasping. I don't know. I don't even know what Das Hashem is, but I know Jews are special. But you can't even say why. Oh, so maybe you just want to be superior to everyone else. So maybe you're going to dive in that we should all go back to Eretz Yisrael. Maybe we will all go back to Eretz Yisrael. You know, you have people walking around saying, oh, we're better than everyone else, and then they're going to come fight with us. That's what Rabbi Yehudah is saying, meaning the world's not ready for it. The world's not ready for it. Now, how does the world get ready for things? Who makes the world ready for things? Humans. Who else makes the world ready for things? It's human development that dictates the development of history, right? So therefore, when we talk about is the world ready for this or not, it means are we ready for it, okay? So again, the historical consciousness is very important for application. You can never apply a practice or a halacha without understanding the historical context. So when we talk about this tremendous problem, don't be doichik the case. Don't hasten the end. Don't daven too much. Don't push for things such as going back to Eretz Yisrael, that, or building the Beis HaMikdash, let's say, that it's not the time for it yet, right? But actually, what that means is you have to be utterly sophisticated about how redemption is going to work, and you have to have an understanding of what the steps need to be. Mm-hmm. Now, again, like I said, and where does that happen? Where does that develop? Within you. So this in no way means that you shouldn't be active, but it means that the activity has to be smart, it has to be internal, and it has to be taking into account all the factors that contribute to Geula. Okay? So, but here's a very important point. Those who have no understanding of the content of Geula, they have to be utterly passive, because they're at risk of breaking things. Okay? The reason why I'm comfortable saying we have to do this, is because I think I have an idea of what it's supposed to look like. But if you wouldn't have an idea what it's supposed to look like, how do I know we're ready for it? How do I know we're ready for it? Maybe we're breaking something by going back to Eretz Yisrael. Maybe we're creating anti-Semitism. I don't know, whatever. I don't think we are. What I mean to say is that, so you see what happens is that people, once you don't have a good understanding of redemption, you sort of have to just say, hands off, let's outsource it, let someone else do it. Now, who's that someone else? You know, you're saying, oh, we're passive. Who's that someone else? Maybe it's me. Maybe it's a guy who does have a good understanding of it. The person who's saying, I'm not going to touch it, because he's scared, because he has no understanding. Okay, that's fair. It's such a toxic thing. It's such a dangerous thing.
It's understanding, so get an understanding.
Right. So again, but that's exactly.
That's what.
Yes, get an understanding. Right. The work. That's what I said before. The work has to be. The work is internal. Right. The work is in terms of understanding. But that's another point, which is, I think that's true today, because we have a certain sophistication and we have a certain. The conditions are, I think, ripe for that kind of understanding. But it seems, for some very fundamental reason, maybe because we didn't have Eretz Yisrael, so we couldn't have that kind of consciousness. I don't know. That there wasn't this ability to we did not have this ability to really think about it. So if you don't have an ability to really think about it, then you just outsource it.
Yeah, and I think on that level, or from that perspective, like the reality of today, where you can open up ChatGPT and say, tell me Moshe's Shura on this thing, and and give me both the original and the translation, whatever. And so, taking a step back, so there's a Canadian philosopher, Marshall McLuhan.
Who?
Marshall McLuhan. What he said is that the medium is so the way you communicate is more important than what you say. And you see it like in front of our eyes. 200 years ago, 150 years ago, there was no fax machine, no telephone, nothing. You wanted to ask a shayla, a big shayla, you write a letter, to send it to the, if it's a big shot, the Ramah, I don't know, whatever. You have to wait till it comes back. You probably thought about your shayla for 6 months before you wrote it down, before you sent it. Now it's like I WhatsApp a guy, and Chaim Kanievsky is saying to Tehillim, whatever. It's 2 hours later by net. It's a different world. It's a different reality, right? And so, I think that fundamentally changes the equation, which is what you're saying. And again, we have access to all knowledge. We have Yitzhak Chachma. We have whatever sefer you want, pretty much.
Yeah, we could do things. That couldn't be done, and we have to start thinking about how to do them.
In ways we can. Right. The idea is,
communication is very important for man to, as we discussed last week and this week. Tzalem Elokim means men are communicating. So, or cooperating. Cooperation and communication have a lot to do with each
You
other.
can't cooperate without communication.
Correct.
You gotta be able to communicate.
Right.
No, I mean the idea that again that like everyone theoretically can have a megaphone. I mean we should
Right.
not to be crazy, but how many Twitter followers Mashiach can have?
Right.
Right. Is he gonna have
Exactly.
8 billion followers?
If he has what to say, if you have what to say,
Right.
you could say it,
You
right?
can say it.
Yeah.
People listen.
Exactly. Anyway, so I think did we do justice to your what's on your mind?
Yeah, no.
I mean, again, I think my point was to solve. I mean, you raised a very good question. You said, there seems to be these two aspects, and how do they, so I say one's right, the other one's wrong. No, it's not. It's yes, what's right is natural, but from afar, until things that are natural become feasible, they seem miraculous.
Right.
And that's why, and so I think we said 2 points. Let's just summarize. I'll summarize what we accomplished. I think we accomplished a lot with this conversation. The first question was redemption, active or passive, right? And how to reconcile those two kinds of messages that you seem to hear. And my answer is active redemption. The reason why you hear a passive voice is there are 2 aspects. Number 1, it's hard to talk about things realistically in an active way when they're completely unfeasible, and therefore they are discussed in a tone of what?
So yes, I mean
They're discussed as being miraculous. Well, let me just summarize, okay? And number 2, there's this issue about if we don't know what we're doing, then better don't do anything, because there's this danger of called the chikas haketz, which is a terrible thing to do. It really is a terrible thing to do, to try to hasten the end. By the way, hasten the end, part of what we're talking about for halachic state, let's say, people who would say, I believe, I may mention this in my sefer, should the Israeli government, or whatever, or I don't know, should a Jew in Israel insist on the very strict halachas vis-a-vis idolatry in the Holy Land, and what may or may not be considered idolatry, right? Not necessarily. Even though technically, according to halacha, he should, but that is the chikas haketz. That's hastening the end. Because what does it mean to hasten the end? It means to do anything which is associated with redemption that the world is not ready for. So you have to be smart.
A good example could be, and again, I don't know if I'm just postulating, is going on higher bias.
Yeah.
And bringing korbanos.
Exactly.
It's crazy
Exactly.
to do. It's just
Exactly.
we're not ready for it.
We're not ready for it. We're not ready for it is an extremely important consideration, right? So, like I said before, I don't think we have a mitzvah ability to make this because the shkin is not here, but I also think that if we're not ready for it, that's a very important thing. And people are like, what do you mean? It's a mitzvah, this, that. Huh? Who cares? Who cares? There's much bigger considerations because remember, we're not doing the mitzvahs anyways. We're not doing the Torah anyways, whatever. So, the whole purpose is let's figure out where we're going. Okay, so you have to be very smart. Wait a second. You know why this is a big secret? Why is it a big secret? Because, like I said before, we're not going to tell them we're not doing the mitzvahs, but the smart people know that we're not. Anyways, this whole thing is a game. So let the rabbis decide what we're holding
makes it an active endeavor.
The fact that
Israel exists,
right,
even in its current form,
right,
as the state it is, makes it an active endeavor.
Yes, 100%.
Now it became a reality.
100%. 100%. And by the way, and even if you say, and if someone says, okay, we shouldn't go on the har bias because it's kids, okay, but the fact that there are some people who do go on the har bias, and the fact that people are sneaking in their goats. That's what that's the practice. Right. The Ramah's doing about. So everything is happening exactly as it should. Don't worry about it. But the smart people know that there's something called the kids. Everything has to do with the process, and the process means cooperation. And cooperation, the world has to understand us. But again, the key thing is first, we have to understand ourselves. So that's the number one avoid of Eretz Yisrael is understand yourself. Someone start asking these questions. I wish I would. I'm busy asking these questions all the time. I don't know if you see. I'm basically asking the same question. Whatever. I used to hack this on Twitter a lot. What's the purpose of the Torah? No one knows. No one knows what Das Hashem is. I mean, this is what everyone has to be busy with, and we have to figure out. Is there a purpose? And by the way, not only do you have to figure out what it is, you have to start criticizing it. Meaning to say, you have to ask critically. Like, okay, that's what it is. Why do we need it? I believe. Since I believe in the Torah, that we'll find the right answers. But you can't understand something until you ask the question. Like, maybe do we need this? Maybe do something else. Yeah, maybe something else. What do I need that for? And first, understand what it is, postulate what it is, criticize it, see if it works, see what withstands criticism, and then we could go to the next step. All right. I think this is good. We got something. Yeah. Leave it at that.
Murder.
Okay.